This happened about 8 years ago during Thanksgiving at my grandmother's place. And honestly, I can still remember every single detail like it was yesterday. My grandparents lived in this quiet house tucked away among the trees, far enough from the main road that the nights felt unnervingly still. Whenever the family gathered, the house was always so warm and full of energy. People talking over one another, the smell of food cooking, football playing on the TV. But once everyone finally went to bed, the atmosphere shifted completely. That night, I just couldn't sleep. Everyone else had been in their rooms for hours. My grandparents were asleep downstairs, and my mom and brother were tucked away in another room. As far as I knew, I was the only one awake in the whole house. I was sitting alone in a spare bedroom on my computer. The room was dim, lit mostly by the glow of the monitor, with a small TV nearby playing Adult Swim quietly in the background while I scrolled through the internet. It must have been around 4:30 in the morning. I remember checking the time because I was genuinely surprised I was still up. Outside, it was dead silent. No cars, no wind, nothing. Then, I felt it. A sudden chill raced through me. It wasn't just the kind of chill you get when a room is drafty. This was different. It started at the base of my neck and crawled slowly down my spine. A few seconds later, I heard laughter. Children laughing. A little girl and a little boy. The sound was so clear that I immediately looked around. My first thought was that it was coming from the TV, but when I looked over, it was just some random action scene playing. No kids, no laughter. I muted the TV anyway, but the laughing didn't stop. Confused, I checked my computer. Every sound setting was muted. The speakers were off. There was nothing playing in my browser. Yet, the laughter continued. It wasn't loud at first. It was distant and almost playful, like two kids giggling in another room. I just sat there for a moment, frozen, trying to figure out where it was coming from. Then I thought, maybe the radio was on in the kitchen. My grandparents had a digital radio downstairs, and maybe it had just turned on. That explanation felt logical enough to make me investigate, so I stood up. The second I did, the laughter got a little louder. I froze. The change was subtle, but it was definitely there. I hesitated for a few seconds before taking a step toward the bedroom door. Again, the laughter grew. That playful giggling turned into full-blown laughter, the kind that fills an entire room. My stomach tightened. I took another step, and another. With every step I took, the sound intensified. By the time I was halfway across the room, it sounded like the children were standing right outside the door, laughing hysterically. Then, I heard something else. A baby crying. At first it was faint, almost lost beneath the laughter. But as I kept moving, the crying grew louder too. The laughter turned wild and uncontrollable, and the baby transitioned from crying to screaming. Not just crying, screaming. The kind of scream that tells your brain something is deeply wrong. I stopped dead in the middle of the room, desperately trying to make sense of it. My mind was racing through every possible explanation. A TV left on, a radio outside. Maybe I was just sleep deprived, but none of it fit. The sounds weren't just getting louder. They were reacting to me. Every step I took toward that door increased the volume, as if something wanted me to hear it, as if something was waiting for me to reach the hallway. I should have turned around. I should have stayed right where I was. Instead, I kept going. The closer I got to the doorway, the more unbearable it became. The children weren't just laughing anymore. They sounded manic. Their laughter echoed and overlapped until it became a literal wall of sound. The baby's cries turned into desperate, agonizing screams. The volume was almost painful, like I was standing directly in front of massive concert speakers. It felt like the sound was being forced into my ears. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think. I only had a few steps left. I kept telling myself that once I got into the hallway, everything would make sense. My mom was right across the hall. I could wake her up, and she'd hear it too. She'd tell me what was happening. I took another step. The noise was deafening. Another step, and it got even louder. One more. The screaming and laughter were filling every single corner of the room. I reached for the doorway, and then something hit me. It wasn't a sound or a feeling, it was physical. I felt two hands slam into my chest, hard. The force was so sudden, it knocked me backward. My feet actually left the floor for a split second as I stumbled and crashed back into the room. The moment I moved away from the doorway, everything stopped instantly. The laughter vanished. The baby stopped screaming. The room went completely silent. I just sat there, staring at the doorway, unable to move or even process what had just happened. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than 30 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Time didn't feel real anymore. I was shaking, and my chest hurt where I'd been hit. Every instinct I had was screaming at me not to go near that door again. I started crying. Not because I wanted to, but because I just couldn't hold it in. I dragged a small armchair into the corner of the room and curled up inside it. I didn't sleep much. Every little creak made me jump. I kept staring at that doorway, waiting for the laughter to start again, or to see something standing there, but nothing happened. The rest of the night was silent. It wasn't until just before sunrise that my grandmother came into the room and found me asleep in that chair. She woke me up, asking why I wasn't in bed yet. I never gave her the whole story. I just told her I was scared. She led me downstairs and let me sleep in her room. To this day, I still can't wrap my head around what actually happened that night. Maybe I was just so exhausted that my mind started playing tricks on me. Maybe there was a logical explanation that I just couldn't grasp at the time. But there is one thing I've never been able to make sense of: the shove. I know what it feels like to lose your footing. I know what it feels like to stumble. And I know exactly what it feels like when someone else puts their hands on your chest and pushes you. Whatever was in that room that night, it wanted me away from that doorway. And for one split second, it got exactly what it wanted.